There's lots for us to get stuck into. We're going to talk a lot of Man United. We're going to talk a lot of Barcelona a little bit later on. We've got Daniel Harris, and we also have Graham Hunter coming your way. We should talk briefly about the Manchester United defeat last night. There was a row between Bruno Fernandes and Victor Lindelof, and Fernandes is out of order here. This is ridiculous behaviour. If you are still in the competition, it is 2-1. There is, 12 minutes left to go in the game. You get the ball, you put it down, and afterwards, you go and you wag your finger in the dressing room, in the privacy and the comfort of what's happening. You're still trying to win the game. There's like a trophy in a week's time, less than a week's time, being given out for this competition. What are you doing?
I'm not sure if I go along with that at all, actually. Like, I think that Manchester United fans, I'd imagine, will have been crying out for some display of caring from their dressing room. And like, while they've had incredibly talented footballers in that dressing room for quite some time, there has been a sense that there hasn't been a real dressing room leader. Like, if something bad happens to your team, is Anthony Martial more likely to call somebody out, or is he more likely to sulk? He's probably going to do the latter. What will Paul Pogba do? Probably the latter. The likes of Brandon Williams, Mason Greenwood, too young to have that authority. I even get the sense that Marcus Rashford and Harry Maguire might even fall into the bracket of sulking rather than actually calling a teammate out. But Bruno Fernandes, we now know, does not fall into that category. He is not a sulker. He is somebody who is going to dig out his teammate. And sure, I mean, in an ideal world, if everybody is an angel and has got all their priorities in order and has never made a mistake in their life, of course they do it behind closed doors. But at that moment, Bruno Fernandes was so pissed off with a defender who cost a lot of money deciding to not go for a ball that was fizzed right in front of his face with the side level at a goal apiece. It is an egregious error. Bruno Fernandes was ashamed of his teammate. He was fuming, and he decided to call him out at that moment. If I'm a Manchester United fan this morning, Ger, I am delighted with Bruno Fernandes at that moment. I'm like, I want to keep that guy.
He didn't even pick the right defender. He didn't even pick the right defender. Where was Aaron Wan-Bissaka for that goal and the first goal in the first half? Like, you can't decide suddenly that this massive systems failure falls simply at the root of Victor Lindelof. And maybe the midfield weren't pressing enough. If you look back at the goal, it's this kind of very easy passage of play where Sevilla just pick out somebody in a pocket of empty space who finds somebody else in a pocket of empty space who then puts it right across the goal. Where's Harry Maguire? He didn't do it to somebody important. He didn't do it to somebody who's going to be there next season. He picked the weakest of the crowd. To me, this is all the hallmarks of a bully. This is absolute textbook schoolyard bully. You pick on one of the guys who actually isn't really responsible.
No, I'm not having the fact that Victor Lindelof could ever be the person who gets bullied at this situation. Like, I mean, how can someone like Bruno Fernandes be considered to actually bully Victor Lindelof in this situation? That would always happen the other way around.
You're picking him out. You're picking out like one player who you know is like barely hanging on to his position in the team, who's an easy target. Didn't go for Harry Maguire. Didn't go for any of his midfield partners who weren't closing down. It's just it's like, for me, it was narcissistic. It was selfish. It was the wrong. If you're praising him for showing leadership with 15 minutes left to go in a knockout game, and how does that make the rest of the team feel? How does it when you're in a high pressure environment and somebody starts screaming at you? Do you perform better?
I'm not really commending him on his leadership. I do think that it's a hallmark of leadership. I think that I'm mostly impressed by how much he cares, because I genuinely think, Jared, that a lot of people in that Manchester United dressing room don't care as much as they possibly should. This is kind of like Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva getting into their spat on pitch in 2017. And of course, I mean, you will rightfully say that Manchester City aren't exactly the hallmarks of how great things should happen, considering that was in a Champions League phase. But still, Kevin De Bruyne is the best player in English football.
You're making my argument for me. I didn't even have to open my mouth. Keep going. Go on.
David Silva, one of the best players we've seen over the last 10 years in English football. They are the hallmarks of great players, that they desperately care about things to the point where they don't care who's watching. They don't care if they're digging a teammate out in public.
Kieran Dyer and Lee Bowyer, really, that's a real hallmark of leadership.
That is not what we're talking about. That is not what we're talking. These are very different things.
I mean, come on, they're not a million miles away from each other.
Kieran Dyer, Lee Bowyer, is about not passing the ball to one another. This is not about passing the ball to one another. This is about a centre-back who ignores a ball that fizzes right in front of him. And on your bullying point, if just Google it there, Victor Lindelof is 6'2", Bruno Fernandes is 5'10". A 5'10" person doesn't tend to bully a 6'2" person, not in that Manchester United dressing room. It is not a case of bullying. It is a case of Bruno Fernandes really desperately being so unbelievably annoyed by the fact that such an expensive defender would let a ball fizz across his face that he decided to have a pop at him in public. And I'm okay with that. I think Manchester United needs that sort of character in the dressing room.
Well, someone needs to take Bruno aside and go, shut up. Game on the line. You're saying it's an ideal scenario, a happy world where we're all angels. That's not true. You just don't. The All Blacks have their rule about this, and it's one I think that Bruno Fernandes would do well to abide by in the future.
Hold on a minute.
No, we're out of time. 9 minutes past 8. You can come back to this a little bit later. 087 918 180 is the number. Shane Hannon, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. Keeping well. And yourselves?
You're a Man United fan.
Yes, I certainly am.
Bruno Fernandes, a hero for calling out Victor Lindelof last night. The type of leader that team needs, as opposed to a bit of a charlotte in those last 10 minutes.
Yeah, there was a part of me that when I saw it happen, I was like, yeah, fair enough. Victor Lindelof screwed up here. You see the replay and Aaron Wan-Bissaka is equally at fault, but it's nice to see some passion. And also Ole Gunnar Solskjaer often sits in that subs bench, and to see a little bit of passion from him, I think it was in the quarterfinal maybe, or even the last game of the season where he started to show a little bit more passion. Maybe it's been a little bit missing in that United squad, so not the worst thing. Yeah, they probably should have kept it to the dressing room afterwards, but you know, these things sometimes spill over, I think.
Should he not have been running back to get the ball?
Yes. I mean, there's an argument.
Yes.
There's an argument for both, but I think... do
you have time for a fight? Do you have time for a fight? I don't know. I'm not sure you do. And I'm not sure you're going to get a better performance out of Lindelof for screaming that. Maybe you are. Maybe, you know, maybe Bruno understands the... Maybe Bruno's the best man manager at Old Trafford these days.
That's not going through his head. This is a completely emotional thing from Bruno Fernandes. This is not a calculated thing. And my point is that I'm fine with that. Your point about Aaron Wan-Bissaka is complete nonsense and whataboutery. You can't start thinking to yourself, "Ooh, which of these people will I dig out?" When you're digging somebody out,
the person responsible.
It just happens. They're both highly responsible for this, and it is arguable who is more responsible. And your point on the All Blacks, which is the most nonsensical thing you've said, it is okay to implement an All Blacks philosophy if you are coming from an All Blacks base, when you are the best team in the world and have the best mentality in the world. Manchester United right now need to become the All Blacks. They need dickheads to be able to weed out dickheads.
I realise that you left an important part of your brain in a nightclub in downtown Dublin over the course of the weekend, but the All Blacks instigated their rules after they lost a World Cup final because they choked again and again. They came from the lowest of the low, where they actually had the best. They had the best team in the world, but their entire psyche was defunct. They had somehow managed to talk themselves into this. And here's the point: you can't only institute a culture when you're at the very top. You have to instigate it from the very bottom. Next season, when they sign another centre-back to go alongside Harry Maguire, is that person going to be constantly wondering, am I allowed to pass the ball forward here? Because if I get it wrong, Bruno's going to come and dig me out in front of everybody. That's not how you build a culture. That's like selfish, look at me, I'm Bruno, I'm the star. This is a messiah complex that he's... Let's wait and see. I think that the seeds, he's got to be taken inside and said, don't do that again. Right?
It's not exactly a Lee Bowie or Kieran Dyer incident. It was heat of the moment, shout at each other, tell each other off. You just screwed up there. F off. Leave me alone. It was that kind of thing. You see it in every game. It was just the fact that the cameras picked it up is why we're all talking about it. He might have even screamed at Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and none of us happened to see it because TV cameras might have picked it up. But
Tommy's saying, "Get on, move on." But okay. How many more games did Lindelof play? How many more games does he start as first choice?
Bring back Chris Smalling, I think.
This is the end. He's killed him. He's killed him. And then I tell you, the seat of power now rests firmly with Bruno at Manchester United, and I hope he carries it well next season.